about how to handle it when people are blatantly wrong. It's something that we all struggle with, especially during abuse, because a lot of the abuse and the bad things, we get conditioned to believe bad things will happen when somebody else is wrong, because it usually does in an abusive relationship. But that's also what makes it abusive, right? Is the fact that bad things happen when somebody is wrong, but that's not a fact of life, and generally life just doesn't go that way. So in an abusive relationship, we know that a lot of the abuse comes around for unfair reasons. Well, after such a relationship, the amygdala in your brain, which is the first responder, sort of becomes tuned to that. So it becomes part of our sensory perception, part of our input processing, where now, if there's somebody who has a significant role in our lives, starts to get it wrong or misinterpret something, the amygdala fires up, we go into the freeze, flight, or fight response, and we panic because in the past this has meant bad things are going to come. What do we do about this? How do we handle people getting wrong, or getting it wrong, like about you? And it could be something, factual, or maybe they misinterpret something you said, or maybe they believe a lie. Or here's a good one. Yes, sweetie. No. You already had dinner. There's no chocolate cookies. Meow. Go upstairs. Watch TV. You don't like Pee Wee Herman? Well, watch Barbie then. Put Pee Wee's Playhouse on. Just to see what they would do. So anyways, where was I? Oh yeah, let's say, for instance, people are getting it wrong, especially after the results of a smear campaign, right? Or the general poisoning of the well that follows. And several things. Number one, you've got to learn to be okay with other people being wrong. You've got to learn to be okay with other people being wrong.
No.
Well, you can't be right all the time. Oh, look, Mr. Know-It-All, right? We tend to down people who tend to know everything, Mr. Know-It-All, Mr. Book Smart. If you can't know everything, then that means other people can't as well, and that means other people are going to be prone to being wrong. What you doing? I think we got a pooper on deck. Why? Well, if they're wrong about you, then you've won.
Let me just say that again.
Well, if they're wrong about you, then you've won. You don't have to do anything about it. When somebody else is wrong, they're wrong.
Well, yeah.
They lose. You're already in the position of power. But when you start talking, and whenever you get triggered from people of the past or present, and you lose your stability, then you will literally just surrender your position of power. You look like the weak one because even though they're wrong, they've got their wit about them and they're nice and calm. They're not getting emotional. Now you're emotional, right? And then from the opposite standpoint of, well, you can't know everything all the time, Mr. Know-It-All, all that stuff, right? People make mistakes all the time. It's like, God, So, okay, I'm sorry. Damn, right? So you get that kind of effect. And she's done pooping. I'm done wiping ass. Well, we've talked about number 1. My daughter's done number 2. So, on to number 2. It is not your job to correct them. It's not your job to be honest. It's not your job to put them on the happy path. Now, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't want to. And it doesn't mean that you shouldn't try to. I'm saying it's not your obligation. You're not contractually bound to this, right? Because we internalize this as a personal failure. If we perceive somebody being wrong and we want to set them straight with the truth and we can't do it, then what happens is we internalize that as personal failure. I was unable to help my friend, right? We feel that guilt, you know? And so this is just a way of thinking that you've got to undo a little bit. It puts you in a position of servitude, right? And think of it from this perspective. When you do that, when you make it your job, your duty to correct people when they're wrong, then what you're doing is you're giving them free reign to just go be and do whatever the hell it is they want to do. Don't worry, Billy will come and correct me, you know. I don't have to think about it as much. If I just start going off the happy path, well, then my minion here will come and, correct me, you know. We see this pattern an awful lot with some of these vivacious significant others who are just full of energy. They can really brighten up the room. They don't do a whole lot of thinking. God bless them.
Is this chicken what I have, or is this fish? I know it's tuna, but it says chicken by the sea.
But it's not your job. And when you do that, like I said, it subverts you into a position of submission and servitude, being a people pleaser.
Chicken of the Sea is the brand. Oh. Because a lot of people eat tuna, it's like a lot of people eat chicken, so it's like the chicken of the sea.
Okay, I understand that.
Well, you're framing it wrong. You're doing everything for somebody. You're their servant. You're not a people pleaser. You're a person server. You are a servant. You're not a people pleaser. You're a person server. You are a servant. That's different than being like a good Samaritan and having compassion for people when they're in serious trouble and unable to help themselves. Now, being unable to help yourself and unwilling to help yourself and outright refusal to help yourself, those are all very, very different things. Now, being unable to help yourself and unwilling to help yourself and outright refusal to help yourself, those are all very, very different things. I realize I'm doing number 2 way too long. And that's it. Steve Harvey said this on one of his Ask Steve segments. I forget what the segment was, but I took this good quote away, and he says, look, if you tell somebody the truth and they get mad, it's not your problem. You've already helped them the most you can help them. You can't do anything more than that. You can't. And you have to realize that. When you tell somebody the truth and they get mad and it doesn't work, that's it. That's it. Anything else is going to lead to frustration, or you're going to change their mind through duress, where you harangue them into saying, okay, fine, yes, you're right, right? But you don't actually really change their mind. You just make them agree under duress because you're just trying to convince them of the truth. You tell somebody the truth once, and then if they don't believe it, that is their problem. It is not yours, okay? And you have to think about that. Lastly, you cannot control how people feel, and people cannot control how you feel. This is the illusion of emotional manipulation, because it's entirely about controlling how people feel. The way emotional manipulation works, we can't control somebody's feelings. You can't say, hey, you, now you're mad, right? That would be an awesome superpower. I would love that. It would make my morning commute so much more entertaining if I could just do that to the other drivers and just watch it unfold. But I can't, so it's not. My commute sucks.
Damn it.
When you have a gap in rationalization, or you're in a situation that you don't immediately understand, it gets awkward and it goes to your amygdala for processing, right? The way emotional manipulation works is not by actually controlling your emotions, but it's through the systematic diagnosis of your prefrontal cortex and looking for situations for which you do not have a base set of knowledge, or what we call common sense. When you systematically diagnose somebody through their prefrontal cortex and find where there's deficits, where somebody doesn't fully understand or misunderstands, then it goes to the amygdala, and then the amygdala produces the particular response. So it's not a direct control of emotions. It's more like a direct identification where rationalization is non-existent in somebody, and then it can produce an anxiety response or an emotional response because their rationalization process is deficient. So you cannot control how somebody else feels. You can only influence it, and through emotional manipulation, like I said, it's more of a scientific velociraptor approach to finding the weaknesses in the prefrontal cortex. And that's very important to understand, because you cannot actually make somebody happy. You cannot make someone else happy. And you cannot find somebody who makes you happy. I hear this all the time. People are like, I just want to be with somebody who makes me happy. Well, good luck, because nobody has that kind of power. Like, hey, you are happy. No. They can't make you happy all the time. The only person who can make you happy is you. Because when you make that your focus, then you're not so prone to having these amygdalal reactions. And when the amygdala stays offline and is calm and relaxed, you're happy. When the amygdala comes online, you're ready to freeze or fly or fight, right? That gets in the way of happiness. That's for damn sure. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. Please like, comment, or share. I'll see you on the next video.